You walk past a museum case and stop at a single bone. It is twice the size of any bone you have ever seen attached to a human body. A small card beside it says nothing about giants, but you already feel the question forming. What if they were real? For thousands of years, almost every culture on Earth told the same story. Somewhere in the deep past, before kings, before cities, the world belonged to giants. The Greeks called them titans. The Hebrew Bible called them Nephilim. Norse sagas described frost giants older than the gods themselves. You might assume these were just colorful inventions, campfire tales meant to explain thunder or mountains. But the real answer is far stranger. Many of these stories were not pure invention at all. They were ancient attempts at science. Here is the reframe. Your ancestors were not lying to you. They were looking at real evidence and drawing the only conclusion that made sense to them. Picture a farmer in ancient Greece plowing a field near the coast. His blade hits something hard. He digs, and out of the earth comes a thigh bone the length of his own body. He has no concept of extinct species. He has never heard of a mammoth or a mastodon. So what does he do with a giant bone sitting in human-shaped ground, clearly belonging to something enormous? He reaches for the only explanation his world offers him. A race of giants once walked here, and now they are gone. This is not a guess on your part. It is documented research. Classicist and historian of science Adrienne Mayer spent years tracing these discoveries across the ancient Mediterranean. She found that many famous giant bones unearthed by Greeks and Romans were almost certainly the fossilized remains of prehistoric elephants and other massive Ice Age mammals. A mammoth thigh bone really does look something like an oversized human femur. A fossilized elephant skull, with its large central nasal cavity, even resembles a single staring eye socket. Suddenly, the myth of the one-eyed Cyclops looks less like pure fantasy and more like paleontology without a name for itself. Think about how disorienting that discovery must have felt. You are standing in a field, holding proof of something massive that no longer exists, and you have no framework for deep time, no concept of millions of years, no idea that species can vanish entirely. What would you call that feeling, if not myth? But fossils are not the only thread in this story. Some giants were not bones pulled from soil at all. They were stories pulled from politics and showmanship. In 1869, workers digging a well in Cardiff, New York, struck something astonishing. A 10-foot stone figure, frozen as if turned to stone mid-stride. Newspapers exploded with the news. Crowds paid to see it. Preachers debated whether it confirmed the Bible's account of giants walking the earth. For a brief moment, an entire nation believed it had found physical proof of legend. It hadn't. The Cardiff Giant was a hoax, carved from gypsum and buried specifically to be discovered. The man behind it, a tobacconist named George Hull, later admitted he built it after an argument about whether the Bible's account of giants should be read literally. He wanted to prove a point about gullibility, and he succeeded almost too well. Even the renowned paleontologist Othniel Charles Marsh, who would go on to help define the science of dinosaur discovery in America, examined the statue firsthand and pronounced it an obvious fake within minutes, pointing out fresh chisel marks still visible on its surface. And yet, even after it was exposed, people kept paying to see it. Why? Because the desire to believe in giants was never really about the evidence. It was about something deeper in you, a hope that the past held creatures larger than ordinary human life. That same hope sailed across oceans centuries earlier. In 1520, the explorer Ferdinand Magellan's expedition reached the southern coast of South America and encountered local Tehuelche people who stood noticeably taller than the average European sailor of that era. The expedition's chronicler, Antonio Pigafetta, described them as giants in his journal, and the region was named Patagonia, often translated loosely as Land of the Big Feet. For more than 2 centuries afterward, European maps and travel accounts repeated and inflated the claim, until later, more careful expeditions with actual measuring tools recorded the Tehuelche at an impressive but entirely human height, generally taller than European averages of the time, but nothing supernatural. A real difference in average stature, magnified by unfamiliarity and retold across 200 years of second-hand reports, until tall became giant. So if the bones were often mammoths and the statues were sometimes hoaxes, Does that mean true human giants never existed at all? Not quite. Real human gigantism does happen, and medicine understands exactly why. Your body relies on a small gland at the base of your brain called the pituitary gland. It releases growth hormone in carefully timed pulses throughout childhood and adolescence. In rare cases, a benign tumor on this gland causes it to release far more growth hormone than it should, and far longer than it should. The skeleton keeps responding, bones keep lengthening. The result is a person who grows to heights that look almost mythological by ordinary standards. The tallest verified human in recorded history, Robert Wadlow, reached 8 feet 11 inches before his death in 1940. Physicians who examined him traced his extraordinary height directly to this pituitary condition. He was not the descendant of an ancient giant race. He was a person whose body simply produced too much of a hormone every human already carries. And yet, looking at him, you can understand instantly why an ancient observer with no knowledge of hormones or tumors might assume they were witnessing something supernatural. This is the pattern researchers keep finding again and again underneath giant myths worldwide. A real, physical, explainable cause. Filtered through observers who had no scientific vocabulary for what they were seeing, transformed, generation by generation, into legend. Anthropologists studying oral traditions describe this process as a kind of memory compression. A community encounters something unusual once, maybe a strange bone, maybe an unusually tall individual, maybe a half-buried skeleton exposed by a flood. The story gets told, then retold. Each retelling smooths away the uncertain parts and sharpens the dramatic ones, because dramatic details survive in memory far better than careful, cautious ones do. After 10 generations, a tall man becomes a giant. After 20, a giant becomes the ancestor of gods. This is also why giant myths cluster so heavily around coastlines, riverbanks, and floodplains, the exact places where fossils are most likely to be exposed by erosion in the first place. Mayer's research mapped this overlap directly. Wherever ancient communities lived near fossil-rich ground, giant legends tended to follow, almost like a shadow cast by the geology itself. The land was quite literally handing people evidence, and they were doing their best to interpret it honestly. You do something remarkably similar today, even if you do not call it mythology. Think about the last time a story passed through a group chat or got repeated secondhand at a dinner table. Did it stay exactly the same? Or did certain details quietly grow while others quietly disappeared? That is the real discovery hiding inside the giant myth. It was never really about height at all. It was about how the human mind handles evidence it cannot fully explain. Faced with a mystery, your ancestors did not freeze in confusion. They built a story large enough to hold the mystery and gave it a shape they could picture. You still do this. Every unexplained light in the night sky, every strange noise in an old house, every half-remembered detail of an unsolved case gets a story wrapped around it before the facts ever catch up. The bones change. The impulse does not. So the next time you stand in front of a museum case and feel that flicker of awe at something impossibly large, remember what you are actually looking at. Not proof of a lost race of titans, something better. A direct physical record of how your species has always turned mystery into meaning, one oversized bone at a time. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit the like button, share it with others, and subscribe for more amazing content. See you in the next video.